Welcome back to the final MAVSL recap after an action-packed finals weekend down in Adelaide. Very interesting games, having semi-finals on the Saturday and then the medal matches on the Sunday.
Some upsets.
Some very interesting games, some very tight games with the format going back to just a best of 5, win by 2. There were lots of close sets. I had to watch from home.
I was there.
You were there.
Yeah, I was asked to come and film the reel that we made. Like, surprisingly, people I think liked it. I liked it. It was fun to make. It was different. I don't think anyone's really doing that kind of content because it's like my actual career and then volleyball like merged together a little bit.
Yeah, getting a little bit more of that
Creative
soundtracking behind the things rather than just the standard TikTok. Let's put this song over the back.
Hated the fact that you called it soundtracking, but anyways, moving on. We're going to get straight into it. So we'll start with the semis. The semis were, we'll start with the men's. Interesting. So
A little disappointing.
Yeah.
I think they didn't really have that action behind them, the heart. Like it kind of felt
like both games
swingy.
But both games very, very swingy and both games very clear. Like one team sort of won a set and then the next team, like the quality of play for both teams switched. Like for the Vipers Steel game, it was Vipers played really, really well for the first 2 sets. Perth Steel did not play very well for the first 2 sets.
They
and then
made lots of errors and
Yeah.
got blocked a lot of times in those first 2 sets.
And then both teams did a 180.
Yeah.
And then it was a bit more flip-floppy for the sets because it wasn't a reverse sweep for the Pirates and Storm men, but it was very similar. Like one team played really well and then couldn't sustain that and then had to pick it back up the set after they lost, and then it was sort of back and forth.
It was interesting that the first game of the weekend was the Steel Vipers game. Vipers going up 2-0, very convincing in that second set, an 18-8 second set win. And then an interesting change. Tom Heptonstall, best opposite in the league, got shifted to pass hitter.
Yeah.
And Dan Piggott got shifted to follow the setter because he did still step out of the passing lineup in a couple of rows.
Yeah.
And Dan Piggott, who was then in the opposite position, in quotation marks, stepped into the passing line as a passing opposite. There's a few interesting times where that happens because he was passing well.
It's an interesting one. It's something that I see a lot. Some international teams occasionally run that, and it's like you could call it a 3 outside system. You could also call it a soft opposite. I've heard it called, where it's like you are like when we are serving, we're going to have Tom go and play right side because that's his normal position. But when we're receiving, we'll just do whatever makes sense. So you're like that soft opposite, but you're playing in the spot of a pass hitter. Whereas the actual opposite is also a soft opposite, but he's more of a passing opposite than anything.
Why would you do that other than, like, would you just be doing that to get Tom Heptonstall more usage out of system, match up a little bit better?
Yeah, it's more of a matchups thing than anything. It's also more of a looks thing. Like, for example, if Tom's hitting really well from left side in certain rotations and it's like those are the rotations you're receiving in, and as an opposite, you're locked into the right side. So you got nothing to do there. It's also just to mix it up.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Vipers were doing the thing where they would flip the court so they'd have Sando or Scott, whoever it was for that set, would go out and block Heppers. But then it's like, you don't really have the same answer. And Dan Piggott is also a big hitter, not as big as Heptonstall, but he can also go and hit against Damo. So Vipers are sort of punished regardless of what they did. But honestly, rotations aside, WA Steel just played better.
Yeah.
Like, majority of their errors, I don't have this. Oh, I do have the stats for that. Let me pull it up real quick. But I was there in person, majority of their errors, and there was a total of, oh my Lord, there was 16 service errors.
Yeah, I was about to say
Jesus.
both teams though made a lot of service errors. Vipers made 13 service errors over the game and 16 for the Steel. Over those sort of first 2 sets, it was a lot of attacking and getting blocked as well.
But 9 errors for the Perth Steel men on attack. I would dare say easily 6 or 7 of those were the first 2 sets.
Yeah.
And then after that, there was no errors on attack.
Yeah.
And similar situation for the passing. But yeah, this was a good match. It was upsetting because obviously I'm a Vipers guy, but it is what it is. WA played really, really well once they locked in, once they figured out their groove. They were pretty hard to beat. Vipers struggled to have an answer for anything. And they looked a little bit out of rhythm.
Yeah.
But moving right along, so Pirates and Storm.
Pirates and Storm, a trend we will carry through that being out of rhythm. Storm were out of rhythm this whole game.
Very out of
rhythm. It
rhythm.
felt like they just couldn't really string stretches together. So yes, he still went to 5 sets, but I feel like Pirates felt a lot more consistent this game. They didn't seem to have pit and peaks. They were pretty good. They took their opportunities when they came.
Yeah.
Versus Storm just felt like they were really good and strong, and then sort of fell away a little bit.
And this is potentially a harsh criticism on the Storm and the Vipers, but something that I notice at an international level and a professional club level is the lack of subs. You have 7 guys, you run with those 7 guys, and you make the occasional sub here and there. When I watch the Storm play and the Melbourne Vipers play, lots of subs, lots of coming in and out, lots of revolving doors in certain positions. I mentioned it in our deep dive. The Adelaide Storm have 4 very, very good outsides. Yeah. Problem is, when you're interchanging all 4 of them really quickly, none of them can get rhythm. None of them can find the setter. There was also a lot of Harry Peacock and Rory Welsh. The other setter, they were just both playing. So it just looked like for a set, they would glue and be like, yeah, this is it. And then something would change. And then the next set, they didn't really glue or didn't have flow, whereas Pirates just had the same 7, 8 guys. I think Kieran Ivers played a multi-role, played a bit of Brad Singh's backcourt, came on and served one thing. But that's your 7, 8 guys. That was it for 5 sets.
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a buzzword in our head because we've been talking about it the last couple of weeks about evenness on attack. For the Storm, Regan Fathers was their highest used attacker with 23 attacks, and he was just the opposite for mostly the whole game, except for Finley Bennett came in a couple times this game, but he didn't really get utilised much in the semi.
No.
But then their second highest used attacker was their middle, Charlie Disbury. And then it was just a free-for-all between the pass hitters, like each at 8, 6, 8, 10 attacks. Like sort of no one's really getting lots of chances to be used or really refine it. So their efficiencies are a bit all over the place as well, like 38, 50, 70, 38. Like it doesn't allow anyone to really find those hot spot and be a hot player for any moment because you're just getting shaken around.
No, I agree. And you have to respect the culture of the WA, of the Perth Steel and the Queensland Pirates in the fact that they went with their 7, 8 guys, especially for the Perth Steel, because they really had a stinker of the first couple sets. But to be the coach and be like, nah, I'm going to back my guys. You guys are going to lock in. You're going to figure it out. Like, you're going to get your groove. Not that the Melbourne Vipers or the Adelaide Storm were panicking, reaching to their bench really fast, but it certainly maybe felt a little bit like that. It felt a little bit panicky in the moments because it was very much one player would make a couple errors and then be ripped off the court. And I think in this shorter format, you can't get away with that because there's small sets, like they're short, they're concise. You need to really utilize each and every moment to gain a rhythm, to gain momentum, to find that flow with your setter and your team and all that sort of stuff. So at the end of the day, Perth Steel and Queensland Pirates came out on top.
Yeah, something to see on stat sheets that's nice to look at is what the starting lineups look at each set and what the subs look like each set. Queensland Pirates, it is the same every set except for shifting where you start your setter.
Yeah.
But same starting position, only one sub being made, Kieran Ivers, who was a bit of a server sub, usually a libero, but serves pinch server, sort of defensive sub.
And that's the same for the Perth Steel men. I'm looking at it now.
And
it's
the Perth Steel men,
same.
exact same. Their thing looks the exact same everywhere. No sub, like just been real consistent. Not saying that their bench couldn't come in and play if they were needed, but they're trusting their players to find that rhythm versus the other stat sheets. Sub here, blank spot, not used,
people
not started
not starting.
and then subbed.
Yeah.
So you're sort of mixing up a few too many issues. People don't know their role.
I think, it's something that I hear about really, really top level coaches talk about a lot in mostly the international things, just like with interviews and things that I've seen is role clarity. I think when you have that revolving door of players coming in and out, you don't really have that role clarity. And I feel like some people might be like, well, I'm a pass hitter. Like, yes, I'm the 4th pass hitter or the 3rd pass hitter, but I'm a pass hitter. But once you get to that super sort of elite MAVSL and above, I feel like is more than that. Like you are the hammer pass hitter. Your job is to go out and just crush balls. You're the crafty pass hitter. You've got to go out and you've got to pass first, and you're going to get all these out of system balls that you've got to be creative. You've got to recycle. You've got to do role clarity is really, really important. And I think when you have this revolving door where you're, suddenly I'm the close pass hitter. Suddenly I have to hit one rotation right side and then the other. And then suddenly I'm the far pass hitter. And it just looks really different all the time. And maybe some players can make you look really good in that scenario. But again, shorter sets, higher level, when you're playing a team that's in the same rotation every single time and they get to feel out the entire game and you have to readjust every set, I think you're just putting yourself at a disadvantage. But that's my opinion. And I think some coaches will agree, disagree. And I understand that some teams, like the Polish men's team, they have good role clarity, but they also can use different starters.
But you assume
every time.
that they are probably running through that at training. You're starting, or the changes to the starting lineup, you know, or have been playing next to that player before.
Right.
So, hey, maybe you're not normally the starting pass hitter, but maybe also when you do start next to the not starting middle.
100%.
So you're making two positions of two players that are next to each other. So you're comfortable as blockers being next to someone you're next to at training.
Yeah.
Being next to someone that you're next to when you come on. Like I've been in that position in teams before, being the second opposite and double subbing with a second setter. But at least you are now bringing on two players that have worked on their connection together in gameplay
100%.
versus inserting one player out of position in something that maybe they're not prepared to do.
Yeah. And sometimes you can throw a Hail Mary and be rewarded for that kind of thing, which fair enough. But I still applaud the teams that just roll clarity, keep your team on. We're going to move on to the women's now. The Queensland Pirates versus the Perth Steel women. This, I was there, but I was filming through a lens, so I wasn't super, looking at exactly what was going on. So I do have the stat sheets here, and I do sort of know roughly the storyline. But Perth Steel, Queensland Pirates put on an absolute clinic in this match.
Bit of an upset.
Huge clinic.
Not so many people maybe didn't put enough weight on including myself or
including
ourselves, on the Queensland Pirates winning pedigree.
To be fair
Gold
to
medal
us,
2 years ago, silver medal last year, but then they didn't look so solid across the year.
Didn't have a great season.
But they strung it together when they just bring their players all together. They all know it's finals now. Finals is the only time that matters.
Yeah.
You make finals, that's enough. They were actually on.
They were very, very close to not making it.
They were teetering on the edge of not making finals.
Yeah.
But once you're there, you string it together, and they did tremendously in this semi, 3-0 against Perth Steel. Just probably neutralised the blocks. Perth Steel's a great blocking team. They didn't get so many blocks this game. So
they did have more blocks than the Pirates,
Yeah.
but I think the Pirates really served this skin off the ball in this match. They had way more serves. They had more aces. They had a similar amount of errors.
Yeah.
But the Queensland Pirates attacked the ball 21 more times than the Perth Steel.
Yeah.
Which means that, you can assume with their passing numbers being quite low, 38% and 36%. So not terrible, but fairly low. That Queensland Pirates dominated this out of system.
Yeah, they were playing off hands, recycling.
Yeah.
Just putting an aggressive ball over two tough positions for the WA Steel. And I think being able to find the attack back on them.
Yeah, and I think we said it in our preview for the finals that if Perth Steel wanted to win, they needed to do what they were really good at, which is dominate through the middle. And Queensland Pirates did not allow them to do that. They did not allow them to use their middles. And if they did, Queensland middles were there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Emma Burton was absolutely unreal in the opposite position. And so was Alicia Stevens. And they just played really, really well out of system. They were really efficient. There was not a lot of errors at all. And again, Queensland Pirates playing the exact same lineup every single set. Perth Steel changing it up almost every set.
Yeah, a little bit more variation between who the Libros are, and it was interesting to see them use two Libros with the increased player limit. I
will say though, Perth Steel defensively have looked really, really good all season. So I don't hate that decision.
Yeah.
But yeah, Queensland Pirates they've got that winning culture and they've had it for years and they just know how to go and get it done and they know how to, I would describe it as Queensland have this culture of making bending teams to their will. Like when Perth Steel want to use their middles to try and win this match, Queensland Pirates basically just said, well, good luck.
Yeah.
Like we're going to serve the skin off the ball. We're going to play so hard out of system that you just won't get the chance. And that's pretty much what happened. But yeah, moving on to the Vipers Storm match.
Which during the season, this matchup was a close 5-setter. The regular season time when they competed was anyone's game. It was a toss-up, so we were very excited for this semi-final.
Yeah.
But Adelaide Storm obviously found ways to be more aggressive on their attack, which is something they lost in the regular season.
And that's what we said. We said they had to terminate the ball a bit faster.
And they did. So this was a 3-0 win for them.
Another clinic.
Yeah.
And shout out to a couple of the Adelaide Storm players who came up to me and said, they listened to the podcast and they were a big fan of what we were saying. And I just found it really funny that we mentioned last week. I don't know if they listened to the what we like the preview finals because they were just like, we just want to lock in and they're not going to listen to us before the finals. Anyway. But like we basically said like Melbourne Vipers need to not over rely on Carly Hines and Katie Tipping, and Adelaide Storm need to just have a really varied offense and terminate the ball. And they're not going to be able to stop two players of Katie Tipping and Eliza, but they just need to slow them down. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. Melbourne Vipers setting Katie Tipping and Carly Hines 21 and 26 times, and there's not a single other player above 10.
Yeah. And forcing a couple more errors out of Katie Tipping and Carly Hines than you would typically see, getting a couple more blocks against them than you would typically see, really dropping their kill percentage.
Yeah.
Like we wouldn't normally see those players, Carly Hines at 35% and Katie Tipping at 33.
Yeah.
You wouldn't normally see either of them below 40, 45. Like, so they were probably feeling a little bit more pressure having to play around the Adelaide Storm block and defense because it was a pretty good even blocking game from both teams actually, but a great defensive. We don't get defensive stats, unfortunately.
No, but you can tell.
The Storm's system is great on defense.
But credit to where credit is due. Like we not criticized, but we mentioned that Adelaide Storm have like the highest amount of attacks like per game. They not that they were listening to us and taking our advice, but we sort of said they need to kill the ball really fast. They killed the ball so much quicker than the Vipers did. Like Vipers had 80 total attacks and Adelaide Storm had 67.
Yeah.
So like they basically just went, no, we're killing the ball. We're not allowing Vipers to set. Even if they did set Katie and Carly too much, we're not allowing that. Like we're going to suffocate them.
And the biggest discrepancy between these two teams was their positive receptions. Vipers were passing at 24%. That's very low.
That's very low.
Storm, 54%.
Yeah.
Very high. 21% perfect. Like that is how you are getting to use Cameron Zaya a lot and Rebecca Reeve getting her better looks and still being able to use your middles like Vicky Wright. And Beth Carey, and being able to get those middles up above 50% kill efficiency. So it is just being able to give your team that look, and they're doing that through passing better and serving stronger against the Vipers. So that was probably the biggest difference between these two teams is the opportunities they were giving their hitters.
Yeah. Also like Rebecca Reeve having really good looks, like 20 attacks. Like she had the most, but then everyone else is in and around the same amount of volume and contributing with really, really high efficiencies.
Yeah, her kill percentage dropped a little bit to what you've typically seen, but she made 0 errors.
No errors.
So that is why it is being more consistent. That everyone on that Adelaide Storm team was very low error. So if you look at their win-loss, sort of their influence over the game, their win-loss plus minus.
Sitting at 22.
They're all at pluses. Like the team's at plus 22 versus Vipers are at plus 6.
Well, not even considering the serve errors or the passing errors, Vipers made 12 attacks versus 4. Even if you're not killing the ball that well, like that's not alarming, but that's going to make it really hard to win.
Because you have multiple players in high single-digit pluses. Rebecca Reeve at plus 5, Beth Carey plus 4, Vicky Wright plus 7.
Yeah.
Brooke Langbein, who came on as a sub at plus 5, hitting at high efficiency, versus Vipers are all sort of floating around +1, -1, +2.
Yeah. So that was the semis. So yeah, interesting takeaways from us. I think the biggest thing for me, looking at these, was actually just like, again, role clarity and subs. Teams that couldn't figure out their lineups and like who was going to start and who was going to play what role seemed to be punished. And like whether that's the team's story the whole season or not, that's just what it looked like.
Yeah, that's what happens in finals. Those things are
if you're not
amplified.
locked in. Yeah, like so yeah. But moving on, let's start with the men's bronze. The Adelaide Storm versus the Melbourne Vipers. A very, very good 5-set match.
High scoring sets now that it's back to win by 2.
Yeah. A side note, Alex and I actually don't have the stats for this. They haven't been uploaded yet. I'm just refreshing. Oh, is that the men's match? No, we've got the men's gold 4 minutes ago. Quick,
there's a bit of a back door. We're looking, there might be popping up.
I'll keep refreshing.
But
we'll start with the women's then. We've got the women's.
We can start with the women's bronze.
Yeah, and hopefully
very good.
All right, so
this was between the Perth Steel and the Melbourne Vipers. A couple of people's favourites to win, but
this was everyone expected this to be. I lied. We don't have it's labelled wrong. We don't have the.
But we'll shift to the women's. It was a 5-setter.
What is going on?
Sort of topsy-turvy as well, a little bit.
Did you say topsy-turvy?
Yeah, topsy-turvy, up and down.
Oh, fair enough.
Like a roller coaster. Perth Steel winning 3-2.
Yeah.
But like they won the first set 18-12, lost 12-18, lost 11-18, and then back to being very close again, 19-17, 18-12. There's always, it's sort of surprising to see that there was always a 4-ish point margin across those sets. 6-point margin, sorry.
Again, don't have the stats for this, but I was there. Did you catch the game?
Yeah, I caught the game a little bit. I was at a first birthday party. So I was watching it from... Oh, no. Oh, sorry.
This was on Sunday.
I was running a marathon.
You were running a marathon.
I was delusional. That's for the long episode.
Yeah, Alex is losing his mind from the marathon. Yeah, we'll catch that on a long episode. On Friday's ep. So you didn't catch this one?
I opened it while I was running and then I watched a little bit of it when I got home. I thought about watching it while I was running.
That you were running.
But I did not. I watched a little bit of the men's bron while I was running, I think.
So I was there, again, filming a lot of this, so you don't really get the full perspective, especially because, like, I'm not amazing with a camera, so I was really focusing on what I was doing. But the sets that I was editing the footage and like, actually paying attention, it just looked like when Vipers figured out their distribution and could sort of serve better. Like Vipers are a very strong serving team. When you've got Kay Tipping, Eliza Carly-Hines, Gwen Thornton, I'm trying to think of other, like Hillary Hagan as well. Hannigan, I can't remember how to pronounce. Sorry.
Yeah, Hannigan.
My bad. Yeah, really, really good serving team. Again, that's probably how you're going to beat the Perth Steel. When you don't allow them to use their middles, that's the last. You don't want them to go anywhere near Tessa Brown or Elise Hislop. When Vipers could do that and play them out of system and force them to use their stick hitters and to go up against the big blocks of, you know, your Katie Tippings, your Louise Bates and stuff, that's when Vipers looked really good. However, Perth Steel just find ways to be great on defense, to force free balls, to pass well on serve reception, and then go, joke's on you, we're actually going to use our middles here. And the fifth set really, like, they just used their middles and they served really well. And they just went, no, we're taking it from here. But it was a really good match.
Yeah, Danae Walters as a libero is pretty incredible for that Perth Steel. Probably not many other liberos in the league would get you in positions like that to rely so heavily on middles being your primary attackers.
And we mentioned it earlier too about like the decision to have her play 6, and we asked the community, like, you know, like, what do we think that is? Like, we had our own ideas. I found out that not directly from Perth Steel, but from another coach that coaches in the league, that she, and you can tell, and I could tell, I saw it there and I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. It's something as simple as just she is an unbelievable position 6 defender. She reads the ball off the block so well. And because the Perth Steel are known for very, very good blocking because their middles are so good, you can put your libero in 6 and not be punished for it. You just have to understand that their pipe is going to be pushed. Yeah. And they run that really well anyways.
Because the block is so solid. Defense in 1 and 5 is pretty easy. Set up on the outside hand of your blocker, stand there, get a hard driven ball or get a tip, and move in. But the balls that are going over blocks or around blocks need a lot more
Yeah.
work to make them positive, and Danae Walters does that incredibly.
Yeah. But again, blitzing on through here, Vipers and Storm men, bronze medal match. Very close 5-setter, going the full distance, going to a regular set of volleyball in the fifth set. So that was good. Vipers taking the bronze. I think the Storm had the same issue as the semi. I just don't like. They flipped and flopped between their 4 outsides. They switched the 2 setters. Like, to be fair, they do have 2 really, really good setters. But I just don't know if – I think you need to keep them on a bit longer to get them maybe like I'm saying the same thing too much. But it just feels that way. And I think Will Mercer went down with a knee or an ankle injury. So
and we also saw Finley Bennett play
a bit more –
a larger role in this game.
Yeah. He was really good.
He hits an absurd angle.
He's a big guy.
I mean, he's an opposite, but then he's on left side a couple of times in those rows and he hits so sharp cross and you just see Vipers players go, what?
Yeah.
Didn't really respect that was in his bag. But
it's time to play
right
some
there.
off-blocking defense.
That
hard angle. Like, not a lot of players can hit that angle, but you've got to be prepared for that. Vipers doing a really, really good job killing the ball quickly in this game. Middle's really good. They had... So Damien Whitburn set majority of the season. They had Hunter come in and set this game. I'm not too sure if Damien was injured or didn't, but he barely saw the court this game.
Yeah, maybe just like Hunter was setting pretty solid.
He was setting great. Yeah. I don't think he's set an entire set, let alone a game of AVSL this year. Well, this is his first year. But he set really well. He distributed the ball really well. I was really impressed with how he used the middles and when he used them. Not the riskiest setter, but when you're you're super young setter, your first full game, and it happens to be a bronze medal match, that's nothing to complain about. So I thought he did really well. I thought, the guys served much better.
Yes.
Less errors and put the Adelaide Storm under way more pressure. But again, I think the Storm maybe did that to themselves a little bit. When you're rotating the pass hitters, then you don't really get a passing rhythm. So they just struggled a little bit.
Until that 5th set serving, I think, dropped again a little bit.
Yeah.
Storm had, I think it was 4 or 5 match points.
And served into
in that 5th set.
Yeah.
There was a service error. And then Vipers, I think, got it and made a service error as well. Sort of even before they were at the match point. But for it to go 27-25, like a team should really be able to capitalise twice in a row before you're playing an extra 10 points.
Maybe they just missed playing a regular set of volleyball. They were like, let's take it the distance.
Back and forth.
Shout out to Noel Van Gemst for getting service subbed middle of that set, and then the set went the distance, so couldn't service sub again later. Had to serve the ball and missed the ball completely. And I was
hands on knees.
Yeah, he was like,
damn, that's funny.
I remember Josh Cowan just laughing and being like, I couldn't sub you. I didn't have a sub. It happens. Yeah, it was like, not that he didn't want to serve, but I think it was just no one was prepared to go that distance in that 5th set. So it was just a bit of a funny moment. But yeah, Vipers ended up taking it. Great work to the boys. But speeding on through
to the bronze, to the gold, sorry.
Yeah.
The Storm Pirates women we can begin with. This was a very good game. We do for this game. 3-1 to the Queensland Pirates. Yeah. Really in good finals form. This game was interesting to watch, but this is just something that I'll start by talking about the team's plus minuses.
Yeah.
Because the Pirates were very low on the errors. They finished at a plus 29 for the team.
Yeah.
Versus the Storm were at a plus 15.
Still good.
But proof that they were finding ways to really...
Hard to beat plus 29.
Yeah.
That's outrageous.
Very absurd. And both teams were very even on their blocking, pretty even on their passing, but actually pretty even on their serving as well, but just... Pirates finding a couple more aces. And I think this is a game that we looked at and spoke about Pirates being more effective on the power play.
Yeah.
Just finding ways. It felt like every time they were going 2-0, 2 out of 3.
Or 3 out of 3.
Or 3 out of 3. And it's something that I saw and it triggers something in my brain that I don't really like when teams use their power play in response to another team. And I felt like Storm did that. Pirates, you almost want to be
like patient.
You almost want to be down 11-9 and use your power play as that team that's at 9 because you'll come out on top.
Yeah,
it feels like you'll come out on top most of the time because the Pirates did that and then Storm power played at the exact same time and Pirates got 2 out of 3. So Storm only got 1. So then the teams came out of that at 13-all.
Yeah.
So then you're just at 13-all versus like
you finding
a way
to
wait.
Yeah.
But maybe Storm thought about the fact it's a gold medal match and they left their semi-final actually with a power play in their back pocket.
Well, they didn't need it.
They didn't need it.
No.
So maybe they were thinking we
this-
want to win faster. Let's just get our power plays out of the way and find ways to win because this game was a bit closer than the
It
others.
was so close. Like even just looking at these stats, like 31 attacking points to 38. Like, yeah, that's a decent difference. But
Yeah.
the hitting percentage is a little bit different.
Kill percentages.
So kill percentage, so like 36 for the Storm and 46 for the Queensland Pirates.
Yeah.
It just means that Queensland are killing the ball a bit faster. Reception, Adelaide Storm actually passed decently better, pretty much the same, but like a little bit better. The total serves was 60 to 57, so super close. 5 and 7 errors respectively for each team, and 3 and 5 aces. So Queensland serving the ball slightly better, but also making slightly more errors. So this game was super tight. It was, and looking at distribution, honestly, both teams looking very similar.
Yeah.
Using the middles over 10 times, pass hitters and opposites around that 20 mark.
Yeah, one of these games that I don't know if you'd really be thinking about changing much because both teams had similar usage. Both of their highest usage players were 29, 28. But for Adelaide Storm, that was Cameron Zaya, a young gun. Like the young players for Storm have really come out this season, I think, and played well. But Cameron Zaya was also still hitting at 48%, winning you 14 points, only making 1 error. Like she's at a plus 12.
Absurd.
So that high usage is all right because they were still finding Beth Carey 12 times and Vicky Wright 8. Like they were still being able to use their other players. Rebecca Reeve only 20 attacks this game, so she finally got a little bit of reduction in how often she was being used. But she got blocked a couple times, which is unfortunate, versus the Pirates, they were able to get more players at that higher kill percentage. Emma Burton had an absolute field day in this match, I think.
14 kills.
14 kills,
50%.
plus 11. She was passing it. She only passed 2 balls, so she's an opposite. So,
Yeah. I was like, looking at that too, I was like,
oh, she passed really well. Oh, wait, she's an opposite.
Yeah.
So she took 2
passed
balls, but
she passed it 100% in the semi-final, and I was like, sorry. And then it was like 1 pass. I was like, oh, fair enough.
it always catches your eye. You see the big number and you go, whoa, big number.
My eyes just get drawn to any 100%ers in this whole stat sheet.
But then Lucy Watkins hitting at 57%, like 8 kills, 0 errors. That's in a gold medal match.
Unreal.
Unreal. You're looking for players like that you can get the ball. She got the ball 14 times. Alicia Stevens at 41%, 9 kills, only 1 error, blocked 1 time, 22 attempts. Like knowing that you have players to rely on that are very experienced. Alicia Stevens having some like national team beach experience as well, like having big
Still really
stage
young,
experience, still young.
Yeah.
Knowing that the Pirates have that culture when it comes to finals.
Again, annoying, really gritty, go and win it sort of culture. Just figure it out. Yeah.
Because a little bit of like the advanced stats at the bottom of a stat sheet, you can sort of see how efficient teams were after positive and negative reception. The biggest difference, well, both teams are pretty good after a positive reception. The Pirates at 56% after positive, Storm at 47%. Like, yeah, it's 10% different, but still 47 you'd be reasonably happy with.
Close enough around the mark and you're happy with that.
Versus after a negative reception, Pirates still found a way to win 52% of those balls.
Whereas Storm only 33%. That is a much bigger...
On a negative pass to still find a way to win a point 52% of the time is very good.
Well, that's what we said in the Pirates and Pirates and Steel semi-final is that Pirates just find ways to kill ball out of system.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was that match. It was a really, really good match. And yeah, that was just at the end of the day, the Pirates just find ways to terminate the ball really, really quick. And from traditionally positions of weakness, having not passed the ball very well or got a defensive up that was not really close to the net, and then just find a way to kill the ball. Like, it's brutal to play against. Moving to the men's though, the Queensland Pirates and Perth Steel men. The Queensland Pirates, similar result, 3-1.
Yeah, they looked real good. We've got stats for this game that are just showing, I think, that both of these teams have their consistent roles.
Yeah.
They both look very similar. So this was kind of a matchup of these players will see each other for a whole game, who can outlast and who can win the ball faster and more often. And the fact that the first two sets were so tight, 24-22, 22-20, like.
And these stats are so close.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not quite
Except
true.
for reception, it's probably the
receipt.
only biggest difference.
Yeah.
Queensland Pirates receiving at 56% positive versus the Steel being at 39%. That just lets you be a little bit more free in your
Ben Bell
attacking.
gets to run the court a bit better.
And Ben Bell is an incredible setter, so him having his options is very scary. Knowing that you've got, I mean, Brad Sting hit a lot of balls this game. Mitch Tully back. We're very glad that he was there because he missed the last couple of rounds.
Well, yeah.
But him hitting a lot of balls as well at a high percentage is pretty useful.
14 points from 32 attempts is ridiculous.
Low on errors as well, like one error, one block.
One error for the entire, ridiculous. Yeah, like I think the difference between this match was honestly serving. As like, you know, we can look at the passing stats and sort of go, you know, Perth only passed at 39%, whereas Queensland passed at 56%. I think key players at key moments, I only caught the first three sets before I had to drive back to Melbourne. It was getting very late for me, and it was an 8-hour drive, so sorry. But for the first three sets, it seemed, because like you look at the set score for this, pretty much the first two sets going, you know, into the early to mid 20s, and after that it was, you know, sort of a bit more sway, but it was key players missing and making their errors at key moments. It was Tom Heptonstall missing a serve when it was set point for them. It was, or you know, Dan Pickett getting blocked when it was set point for them. Like, it's just key things happened at key times, because this match was super close to the wire. Like, in terms of like team identity as well, Perth Steel probably don't have to have amazing passing to thrive, because they can just throw the ball to one of their pin hitters and let them go to work. So they're probably not too worried about that lower passing rate. But I think when you allow Queensland to pass that well with a setter of Ben Bell's caliber and just flog the ball as fast as he can to all of the hitters and any distribution that he wants, you're opening yourself up to a lot of pain.
Yeah, they're winning points on first attack probably that little bit more, because you can see in advanced stats as well that they're winning 1 point every 1.69 receptions, versus Steel was still very good as well, 1 point every 1.88 receptions. But so on a positive reception, the Queensland Pirates were winning 59%.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Steel were at 52%. Pretty darn good too.
But when the game was this close, like within a couple of points each way, like that percentage matters.
Versus the Steel got a couple more negative receptions. They had 31 total negative receptions, but they were very efficient in those, 48%.
But like that's their identity, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't mind being at a system. It just means that Queensland control the game a little bit more.
They
from
were
that
flipped.
point of view.
Pirates found ways to stay in that positive. They were in the positive reception margin more, where they're 59%, versus Perth Steel were forced probably into that negative reception area.
Yeah.
Mitch Tully being one of the best servers in the league, probably did a lot of work there. Sam Pittarino was very effective on serve. They didn't get a whole lot of aces, but they got a whole lot of
They served the
pressure
ball more
behind their serve.
which means they were holding rotations a lot more.
Yeah.
Like a lot of their players serving, you know, 13 serves for Brad Sting, 9 serves for Steve McDonald, 11 for Sam Pittarino, 14 for Mitch Tully, whereas the only players above 10 is Kai Landers and Tom Heptonstall at 14 and 18 respectively. So, they're serving the ball a lot, but probably not as often as the Pirates guys in terms of the entire match. And having, again, more errors and not as many aces. It's the smallest of margins, but unfortunately, they lost in 3-1. Sounds like Pirates dominated. They did dominate the last set, 18-15. But otherwise, this game could have been anyone's for the first 2-3 sets even. Pirates having a bit of a lull. A lot of these errors that I'm seeing here, like the 8 total attack errors for Queensland and the 9 total serve errors for Queensland. I remember thinking in that third set as I was leaving that Queensland just made errors left, right, and centre. And I would love to see, surely it's here somewhere, per set errors.
Yeah.
I reckon they all came in the same set.
Yeah, I mean, they were very clean in the first set. Both teams had no attack errors, but they had 3 service. Still had 3 service errors in the first set, 3 in the second, which I think happened at those bad times.
Yeah. Oh, here you go.
Towards that end, yeah, it's just in that little bottom.
Yeah.
area.
So Queensland, 9 of their total errors all happened in the same set.
Yeah,
and then every other one was 5 and 4. So, when that sort of happens, that's just how it plays out. Yeah, overall, a good finals experience. I was happy I got to go and experience it in Adelaide. That stadium was awesome.
Yeah, great little spot.
Yeah, it's good for the camera because the top of the stadium is black and had all the show lights, so it just looked really cinematic. And it made me look really good, but I didn't do anything. But yeah, I think a good wrap up, a very interesting wrap up. Congrats to Queensland. They, I think we said it last podcast, we didn't really overly rate either of their teams coming into the finals just because they didn't have the best season, but we were very aware that they have a winning culture. They are fully prepared to just go out and win because that's just their culture. They've built over however many years of them being super dominant at that level and just creating all these athletes. So well done to them. We're going to do a little bit of we've picked team of the season.
Team of the season
for men and women.
For the men and women. Based a little bit on statistics, a little bit on that intangible, eye test that's not caught great on stat sheets.
Yeah.
We'll start with the setter because he was incredible over the finals. I
Yeah.
mean, he was incredible over the season too. Ben Bell from Queensland Pirates. Probably a toss-up between him and Harry Peacock being the best setters.
Yeah.
But I think Ben Bell is just that little bit better at distributing to his players that he had across the finals, maybe gave him that little bit of edge.
The one thing I noticed between the two of them, especially watching them play in the semi-final, is Ben Bell seemed to take far more risks. There's a couple of things in my head where I remember him being in pretty much position 5 facing position 4 and would flick a ball over his shoulder all the way to position 2. And I was just it's pretty unreal. Yeah.
Our middles for this league for this year.
Yeah.
Steve McDonald first. Probably best middle in the league. Incredible.
Statistically, it was unreal.
Statistics.
And he's just an awesome middle. Watching him play, he's a massive part of that Pirates roster.
And Charlie Disbury, the Adelaide Storm middle, finding ways to be influential in that game. He had a couple ginormous games. I think we saw a little bit of an outlier in the season that he was hitting at 86% kill efficiency against the Vipers. But still being able to find himself in finals as well, being used very effectively. They were both probably well and truly best middles in the league, finding ways to get lots of attacks and both being very good blockers.
I think just consistently, super present, really, really present all the time and really just engaged in the game. There's a lot of things that aren't started soft blocks and things like that. And I think Charlie Disbury, just from the eye test, had a lot of contribution in that regard.
Our outsides, first one, I think we both agree is Mitch Tully.
Yeah.
Didn't play the whole season, but was pretty darn good when he did. He's still up there in totals. And his per game averages are pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Just very effective, high point win percentage at like 72%. His kill percentage is up there at 55.
That's for the season
Lots
as
of
well.
attack. Yeah, for the season.
As a pass hitter.
Pretty darn good. His error rate's pretty low. Pretty good server, one of the best servers in the league as well. And then the second pass hitter position slot, little bit more debate between us on who we were going to decide. So could have potentially even been Scott Johnson for the Vipers, who was pretty solid, but just probably didn't have the high usage and role on that team.
It's hard because if players of similar calibers don't have the same roles in team, they present differently.
Yeah. Who else were we evaluating? There was someone else we thought about.
Like a Will Mercer or a Nathan Roberts, but again, very different roles. Like neither of them playing a consistent role on the court the whole time.
I think a very hard to find and useful player to have on a team is who we've picked is Kai Landers.
Yeah.
He's up there in terms of usage, but alongside the other WA Steel players, they have a very even attack, but he's just so low on his errors, so crafty, and he very good defensively.
He plays such a tough role.
Yeah.
Like when I think like Ryan Slater is sort of giving the ball to a Dan Pickett, Middles, or Tom Heptonstall when they are in system, and then Kai's that out of system cleanup guy, and he sees a lot of volume, and he just does it so well.
So his like initial like point win percentage is like slightly lower, 68%, which is still pretty good, but it's just like he's not being expected to on first attack. His first attack kill percentage is at 50%. Which is probably lower than Mitch Tully at like 61 or like Nathan Roberts at 56, but he is not needing to be a first attack kill player.
No.
He's one of those favourites you see at international volleyball, Slivka style, like just being that crafty
He's that
player
real team pass hitter.
Yeah.
Not that the other passes aren't, but when you've got that, like, I know my role is not necessarily to kill balls.
Yeah.
It maybe is to recycle, to put teams out of system, and to pass the ball really well and to defend. Like, plays that real team-based pass hitter really well. We thought.
Like some we didn't name that aren't good team pass hitters. And then the opposite.
Has to go to Tom Heptonstall.
Just
Man
across
is
finals, across the
unreal.
season. He's probably best player in the league this year.
Close second, probably Sam Pittarino.
Yeah.
Having not played because Tyler Nix played the first couple rounds.
Yeah.
But I think Tom, the amount of volume and the amount of weight on his shoulders, a sort of an old school opposite role where it's like, we're going to set you a million times, you're going to kill as much as you can.
The Australian opposite role.
The
Australian,
as well.
like the old,
like Tom Edgar sort of role where it's like, we're going to set you and you have to kill all these balls. Like, but he does it really well.
Yeah.
And he gets blocks and he serves the ball at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Like, we thought that's the. And then
Libro is one we had a little bit of discussion over as well because
Libro's hard to decide.
It's hard to decide. We don't get to see the defensive influence on stats, but like it could have been. I mean, Kieran Ivers is pretty good, but he then gets swapped out of Libro to play pass hitter / pinch server. Ben Williamson for Adelaide Storm, incredible on reception, 56% positive over the year, 46% like efficiency, like low error rate, but We'll put it to Darcy Cox, who has been the second best passer in the league on serve reception, but we think that a little bit stronger on defense and his movement around the Vipers block.
Yeah. And like there's a little bit of statistical evidence to support this, being that the Vipers are better after they get a defensive touch in terms of killing the ball than the Adelaide
Storm.
The Storm.
Yeah.
And also just from the eye test, even when Darcy played in Queensland and like just known him for years, defensively he just carries the Vipers with the amount of digs that he gets per game. Again, not statted, but we went with that pick, but it could be a flip and flop between the team. But that's our men All-Star 7.
Yeah. Our women's side, we'll just jump in.
Yeah.
We'll start with the pass hitters there. Someone that had a lot of weight for her team and did a pretty darn good job of it, Rebecca Reeve.
Yeah.
For the women's pass hitter for the Storm. Incredible there. High efficiency, low errors.
Huge load as well.
Yeah.
Like just the amount of weight on her shoulders to go out and hit that high percentage like every game is just unreal.
And then next is Alicia Stevens for the women. She's been pretty darn good. Sort of missed a couple rounds, didn't play a whole lot of the rounds, but was like killing at a reasonably high rate. her point win percentage was at 59% for the season. She had 117 attacks for the season, even though she missed games. Like that's a lot of attacks.
Her kill efficiency is through the roof, and she's just from the eye test, extremely explosive, entertaining athlete to watch.
Yeah.
And super young. Like, going to be seeing a lot of her at probably a higher level, we expect.
This year, it was really good to see middles across the league really influential on the women's side. Some of the best teams this year were the best largely due to their middles.
Yeah.
WA Steel being very strong through their middle. Elise Hislop is
the best blocker by far.
Yeah.
Which we've mentioned.
And pretty darn good as an attacker too. Like,
oh, absolutely.
So you don't need she's up there in terms of most stats. She's up there in like her kill percentage is at 48%, but she's well and truly got the most blocks this season. 22 blocks.
By a country mile.
By total, which is absurd. Well and truly far and beyond.
Yeah.
Second place, our other middle, was in second place in terms of total blocks as well. A little bit more effective on attack. Scarlett Rudder was very good at 42% kill efficiency. Actually, slightly worse in terms of attack, than Elise Hislop. But Scarlett Rudder was incredible over the finals series as well for that Pirates team.
And again, like a lot of things that aren't statted that we have to do the eye test for. And I was there and I remember taking note being like, the amount of soft block and the amount of work rate at the net to get to those fast balls that, that Adelaide run and that Perth run in the semi, like just working really, really hard. And when you've got middles like her and at least just work really hard on getting to blocks and sealing the seam, and it just makes such a difference in a team. So those are our two middles, incredible work. I'd hate to see them play on the same team. That'd be terrifying.
Yeah.
Moving on.
To Libero.
Yeah.
WA Steel, Danae Walters.
We've been gassing her up all season about how good defensively she is.
Yeah.
And like just the way that she defends that position 6 is unreal. I have so much footage of her getting unreal digs in back that I need to edit and go through.
Also the best receiving Libero in the league, passing at 55%.
Which is so good.
Like 55% positive is incredible. Gets WA Steel a side out percentage of 59.3%. Like,
yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah, just very strong through that. You'd be trying to steer the ball away from her, but she sort of inserts her game there. And then defensively, playing around blocks, that deeper position, she gets probably a little bit more load defensively than other Liberos can. Just playing out of 6. And she does an incredible job.
But getting rewarded again by the Perth Steel middles work rate. Like a close second, Chloe Jarvis.
Yeah.
She passes unreal and defensively keeps that. Like we gassed up the Adelaide women's team a lot because they keep rallies going for so long and that's credit for her. So close second there, Chloe Jarvis. And are we up to setter?
Yeah, we can do. We'll finish with setter. Setters are important. We'll finish with them. Katie Tipping for opposite.
Oh yeah.
Is who's probably next? Is Katie Tipping as an opposite, just very good. In terms of that across the league, just having a lot of attacks, high kill percentage at 41% for the season. Up there in terms of like the whole league at that volume.
Highest volume.
Because probably next in consideration would be Emma Burton for the Pirates, who had a similar volume, but her kill percentage was just that little bit lower and probably slightly higher error percentage, 10% error instead of Katie Tipping 7% error. But Katie Tipping also was very influential as a blocker.
Yeah, got far more blocks.
The most blocks out of any opposite, 10 blocks for the season, versus no one else was really up there in that position. So she is one of those opposites that you always need an opposite that matches up against pass hitters
and can stop them or slow them down. And she also
does that.
Again, going back to the soft blocks, she gets an unreal amount of them that the Vipers really do capitalise on regularly. Also, what a surprise, the two contenders for All-Star 7 are Volleyroos in the same position. So
crazy.
like, yeah, crazy. Both them players being unreal.
And then setter,
Kylie White.
most important position on the team.
Kylie White from Pirates, unreal setter.
Proven across the season and then definitely shown in finals how good she is at using her players.
Picking setters is tough, but like the thing that we go on is probably just distribution. Looking at the distribution for teams and just the eye test.
Are you keeping all players involved across whole games?
Yeah.
Maybe even looking across the season, like are you developing and getting players prepped in what their usage is going to be in big moments?
Yeah.
So in big moments, they're not making errors. In big moments, they're prepped to know what they're going to receive from you and what you are able to use on passing. And she does a great job with the Pirates.
And again, going back to that Pirates culture of, I guess it's a cultural thing because she, like Ben Bell, is a very, very risky setter and rewards her team a lot for that. Like watching her flick balls to Emma Burton that she had absolutely no right flicking and just being like, wow, that's an absolute dime. And then Emma Burton can just go, thanks, I've got one-on-one, I'm going to town on this. Yeah. And then vice versa for the stick hitters like Alicia Stevens, just makes them look really, really good by taking those risks and backing yourself to give a good ball to your hitters. Yeah, unreal to see. So that's our All-Star 7. Don't know if Volleyball Australia did one. I wasn't at the award ceremony because I was driving home. They didn't post anything. Congrats for Perth Steel for getting the club champions of the regular season. Had to confirm the regular season thing. I was very confused considering Queensland won both golds, but I get that it's for the regular season.
And they finished at the top of the ladder again on both men's and women again.
Yeah. Just unfortunately couldn't
do it in finals, but that's how the sport shakes out. Hopefully there'll be changes in the league to maybe make them best of seasons, best of series in the finals as well.
Yeah. So that's our MAVSL wrap up. We really try to keep this short, but here we are at 56 minutes.
Hopefully good. We're wrapping up a big season.
It's true. It's been a big season.
There's lots of people that influence this league, and we've got to give everyone their flowers now that the season's wrapped.
Absolutely. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your time. Hope you enjoyed our coverage of the MAVSL this year. Let us know what you want to see us do next year, I think, because we've got some plans for the current, next seasons. We're going to, next pro season we're going to cover. Hopefully we'll do some more commentary. Commentary was fun this year. We had fun.
It was an interesting new skill to work on,
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for me is pronouncing people's names.
I get them wrong every time. So hang with us to hear our funny pronunciations.
Yep. And if we pronounce your name wrong, feel free to message us.
And I will still pronounce it wrong next time probably. But I'll try.
I'll do my best.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.